Whispers, I'm sorry, before disappearing. Whispers, I'm sorry, before disappearing into the crowd. I think she was Mom's friend. I don't know yet that I'm about to find the letters that will burn our family to ashes. Join us. Hit subscribe and never miss a story. The church smelled of incense and damp coats and the white roses Elena had chosen because yellow ones, the florist said, felt too cheerful. She stood at the front of the small crowd, her husband Dimitri's hand warm on her lower back, her daughter Anya pressed against her side, and tried not to count the empty pews. 53 people. Her mother had taught third grade for 34 years. There should have been hundreds. Father Alexei's voice rose and fell like the tide, washing over her without meaning. A soul loved by God. A life lived in service to others. A mother, a wife, a teacher. Elena watched her father. Victor sat with his hands folded in his lap, his face a mask of controlled sorrow, his shoulders curved forward as if someone had loosened the strings that held him upright. He hadn't cried. Not once, not since the diagnosis, not through the 3 weeks of hospice, not when they'd lowered the coffin into the ground at the preliminary service. Elena had cried enough for both of them. She was cried out now, hollowed and light, floating above her own body. Then the woman moved. Elena hadn't noticed her before. She stood near the back, wearing a dark blue coat that was almost black, but not quite, her gray hair pulled back severely. She walked down the aisle with the slow, deliberate steps of someone approaching an altar. Other mourners shifted, made room, assumed she was family. A cousin, perhaps. Someone distant. The woman reached the coffin. She placed her palm flat against the wood, just above where Marta's folded hands would be. Her shoulders shook. Tears fell, actual tears, dropping onto the polished surface and sliding down in thin tracks. Elena's chest tightened. A friend, she thought. Mom had so many friends. The sewing circle, the book club, the church volunteers. This must be one of them. She should go over, offer comfort, thank her for coming. But the woman looked up then, directly at Elena. Her eyes were red, her face blotched with grief. She opened her mouth as if to speak, closed it, and then whispered something Elena couldn't hear. It looked like, I'm sorry. Before Elena could move, before she could ask what the woman meant, the stranger turned and walked back down the aisle, past the puzzled mourners, out into the gray November afternoon. The church door swung shut behind her with a soft thud. Father Alexei paused, cleared his throat, continued. Elena looked at her father. Victor stared straight ahead, his face unchanged. But his hands, she noticed, his hands were gripping each other so tightly the knuckles had gone white. She would find out who that woman was. Tonight, after everyone left, she would ask. The reception was at the house, the small house on Takaya Street where Elena had grown up, where her mother had planted lilacs by the fence and hung bird feeders in the apple tree. Neighbors brought potato salad and cold cuts and a ham someone's husband had carved into thin, uneven slices. People said the right things, touched her arm, shook Victor's hand. Anya escaped to the backyard with the neighbor's granddaughter. Dimitri poured tea and refilled plates and pretended not to watch Elena watching her father. Victor moved through the rooms like a ghost haunting its own death. He accepted condolences with small nods, sat in his armchair by the window, stared at the garden. When someone spoke to him directly, he answered in monosyllables. No one thought it strange. He was the grieving widower. This was how grieving widowers behaved. But Elena noticed how he checked his watch, how his eyes drifted toward the door, how he flinched every time the phone rang. By 7, the last guest had gone. Dimitri took Anya home to finish homework. Stay as long as you need, he said, kissing her forehead. Call me when you're ready. Elena stood in the kitchen, running hot water over the serving platters, watching the grease bead and dissolve. Through the window, she could see her father in the garden, standing by the apple tree, not moving. She'd find the photograph. That was her plan. Her mother had kept albums, boxes of them, documenting every school play and birthday and summer vacation. Elena would find a picture from the sewing circle, identify the woman and call her tomorrow. Thank her for coming, ask how she'd known Marta. Maybe offer to share stories. The albums were in her parents' bedroom in the bottom of the wardrobe where Marta had stored everything she couldn't bear to throw away. Elena pulled them out one by one, sitting cross-legged on the carpet, the overhead light too bright, the room still smelling faintly of her mother's lavender sachets. She found the sewing circle photos. 10 women in folding chairs, holding embroidery hoops, smiling at the camera. Elena scanned each face. The woman from the funeral wasn't there. She checked the book club photos, the church volunteer group, the retirement party. Nothing. Frustrated, she started opening drawers. Not snooping, she told herself. Looking. Her mother wouldn't mind. In the bedside table under a stack of old crossword puzzles, Elena found a key. Small, brass, old-fashioned. It didn't fit any lock she could see. She looked around the room. The wardrobe, the dresser, the jewelry box on the vanity. Nothing had a keyhole. Then she remembered the trunk. In the back of the closet, buried under winter coats she hadn't touched in years, was a small wooden trunk her mother had brought from her own mother's house. Elena had never seen it open, had never thought to ask what was inside. She dragged it out, blew dust from the latch, inserted the key. It turned with a click. Inside, old photographs, letters tied with ribbon, a christening gown, a lock of baby hair, and on top, a stack of envelopes bound with twine, all addressed to her father in handwriting Elena didn't recognize. The postmarks spanned decades. The most recent was dated 3 weeks ago. Her hands trembled as she loosened the twine. From the garden her father still hadn't moved. Elena pulled the top letter from the stack. The envelope was cream-colored, the kind you buy in boxes from the stationery store. Nothing distinctive. She slid the letter out, unfolded it, and began to read. My dearest Vam, today at the library an old man asked me for help finding books about the war. He reminded me of no one, but suddenly I was crying at the circulation desk, thinking about how many years we've stolen from each other. I know you said not to write this week, that Marta was having tests, but I needed you to know I am here. I am always here, waiting. 30 years in December. Do you remember? The faculty holiday party, the coat room, how we laughed at how cliched we were. I didn't know then that cliches become real when you live them. She doesn't suspect. You tell me she doesn't suspect. But sometimes I wonder if wives always know, if they just choose not to see. I'm sorry, I shouldn't write this. Burn this letter like you burn the others. But I needed to say it. I love you. I have loved you since before she was sick. I will love you after. Yours always. Elena's hand lowered to her lap. The paper shook. 30 years. The faculty holiday party. Before Marta was sick, she did the math. That would have been when Elena was 12. When her mother was 43, still young, still teaching, still planting lilacs in the garden. When her father came home every night for dinner, sat at the head of the table, asked about homework. When they were a family, a normal family, she picked up another letter postmarked 10 years ago. V, I saw Elena today at the market. She was buying vegetables, laughing with a man I assumed was her husband. She looks so much like Marta. Does she know? Could she ever understand? Sometimes I want to tell her myself just to stop hiding. But I won't, I promised you. The brooch you gave me is beautiful. I wear it when I'm alone. Elena stopped reading. The brooch. At the funeral, the woman had worn a brooch. Elena hadn't registered it consciously, but now the image surfaced. A silver oval, filigree edges, a small pearl in the center. Her mother's brooch. The one Elena had given her for her 60th birthday. The one that had disappeared from her jewelry box 2 years ago. The kitchen door opened downstairs. Her father's footsteps, slow and heavy, crossing the linoleum. Elena shoved the letters back into the trunk, locked it, pushed it into the closet. Her heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her throat. She heard him climb the stairs. She stood, smoothed her skirt, walked to the bedroom door. He was in the hallway, halfway to his room. He stopped when he saw her. You're still here, he said. No accusation, just observation. Dad, her voice came out strange. Who was the woman at the funeral, in the blue coat? Something flickered in his eyes. Fear, guilt. It was gone before she could name it. I don't know, he said. One of your mother's friends, I suppose. He walked past her into his room and closed the door. Elena stood in the hallway, the key to the trunk burning in her pocket. Chapter 4. The Truth in Pieces. She didn't sleep at the house. She drove home at midnight, through streets slick with rain, and climbed into bed beside Dmitri without waking him. But she didn't sleep. She lay staring at the ceiling, the letter's words playing on repeat. 30 years. The brooch, the coat room, waiting. In the morning, she called in sick to work. Dmitri raised his eyebrows but said nothing, just kissed her goodbye and took Anya to school. Elena waited until the house was empty, then drove back to her father's. He wasn't there. A note on the kitchen table. Gone to the cemetery. Back later. She went straight to the bedroom, unlocked the trunk, and read every letter. There were over 100 of them, spanning 3 decades. They told a story she had never known, a parallel life running alongside her own. Vacations her father had taken for work that were really weekends with Irina. Gifts he'd bought that were never seen again. Phone calls taken in the garden, in the garage, in the middle of the night. Irina knew everything about Elena. Her graduations, her marriage, the birth of Anya. She'd watched from a distance, a ghost at the edge of family photographs, while Marta cooked Sunday dinners and helped with homework and grew old believing she was loved. The most recent letter was dated 3 weeks before Marta's death. V. The doctors say it won't be long now. I know you can't see me. I know you have to be with her, but when it's over, when she's gone, what happens to us? Do we finally stop hiding? I have waited 30 years to be seen with you in daylight. Tell me there's a future. Tell me I didn't wait for nothing. Yours, I. Elena put the letter down. Her hands were cold. The woman at the funeral, Irina, hadn't been there to mourn Marta. She'd been there to mark the beginning of her own future, to stake a claim, to stand finally in the open. And her father, her quiet, grieving father, had let her come, had probably told her the time and place. The front door opened. Elena didn't move. She heard him hang his coat in the hallway, heard his footsteps approach the bedroom. He stopped in the doorway. She watched him take in the open trunk, the scattered letters, her tear-streaked face. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Victor sighed, a sound so heavy it seemed to come from somewhere deeper than his body, and sat down on the edge of the bed. I was going to tell you, he said, before you found out some other way. When? Elena's voice was barely a whisper. When were you going to tell me? At her funeral, while she was dying. I don't expect you to understand. You're right. She stood, the letters clutched in her hand. I don't understand. I don't understand how you could do this to her. To me, for 30 years, Dad, 30 years of lying. Victor looked at the floor. I loved your mother. Don't. The word came out sharp as a blade. Don't you dare say that word to me right now. She walked past him, down the stairs, out the front door. She didn't know where she was going. She just knew she couldn't be in that house another second. 3 days passed. Elena didn't call her father. He didn't call her. Dmitri handled the logistics, picking up Anya from school, fielding calls from relatives who wondered why Elena had stopped returning messages. She spent the days walking, sitting in cafes she'd never visited before, staring at walls. On the 4th day, she drove to the library where Irina worked. It was a small branch in the older part of the city, warm and quiet, smelling of paper and floor polish. Elena found her at the circulation desk, stamping due dates into the back of romance novels. Irina looked up. Recognition flooded her face. Fear first, then something else. Resignation, maybe. She'd known this day would come. Can we talk? Elena asked. Irina nodded, handed her stack of books to a younger librarian, and led Elena to a small staff room in the back. They sat across from each other at a folding table. Irina's hands trembled slightly, resting on the chipped formica surface. I'm sorry, Irina said. I know that's not enough, but I am sorry. How long? Elena asked. I found the letters. I know it was 30 years, but I need to hear you say it. 30 years in December. Irina's voice was soft, steady. We met at your school's faculty Christmas party. Your mother was there. You were there. You were 12, helping serve cookies. I saw you. I didn't know then that I'd spend the rest of my life watching you from a distance. Elena felt sick. You were at my wedding. I was in the back. Your father wanted me there. I left before the reception. Did my mother know? Irina hesitated. I don't think so, not consciously, but sometimes. Wives know, they feel something. She was always cool to me, even when we pretended to be friends. I thought it was just her personality. Now I wonder. Elena pressed her palms against the table. Why are you telling me this? Why did you come to the funeral? Because I've been invisible for 30 years. Irina's eyes glistened. Because when she died, I thought maybe finally, I could exist. I know that's selfish. I know you hate me. But I've loved your father since before you were grown. I've been alone every holiday, every birthday, every night he went home to her. I just wanted to stand somewhere and not hide. Elena stood. Her legs felt unsteady. He was my father. She was my mother. You took something from us, from her, and you stood at her coffin like you had the right to grieve. I did grieve. Irina's voice broke. I grieved her too, not the way you did, but I grieved what she represented. The life I could never have, the family I could never join. I grieved for your mother because she was a good woman who deserved better than both of us. Elena walked out. She made it to her car before the tears came, great heaving sobs that shook her whole body. When she got home, there was a message on the machine from her father. Just 4 words. Can we try talking? She deleted it. Spring came late that year. By April, the snow had finally melted, and Elena found herself at her mother's grave for the first time since the burial. The headstone was in place now. Marta Ivanovna Petrova, beloved mother and wife, together in memory eternal. Elena had chosen the words herself before she knew. She knelt in the wet grass and placed yellow tulips against the stone, her mother's favorite. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm sorry I didn't know. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you. Behind her footsteps, she didn't turn. She knew who it was. Victor stood a few feet away, hands in his coat pockets, looking older than she'd ever seen him. The winter had carved new lines in his face. Elena. She didn't answer. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he said. I know I don't deserve it, but I need you to know. I loved your mother. Not the way I should have, not the way she deserved, but I loved her. Elena stood, brushed dirt from her knees, faced him. You loved her so much, you lied to her for 30 years. You loved her so much, you brought that woman to her funeral. Victor flinched. I asked Irina not to come. She came anyway. And you didn't stop her. You didn't protect Mom's memory even in death. They stood in silence, the wind moving through the bare branches of the cemetery trees. What happens now? Victor asked. Elena looked at him. This stranger who had raised her, who had taught her to ride a bike and drive a car, who had walked her down the aisle. She didn't know him. She would never know him. I'm not cutting you out of my life, she said slowly. Anya loves her grandfather. I won't take that from her. But I can't pretend. I can't sit at your table and make small talk and act like nothing happened. Victor nodded. He'd expected this. I want you to sell the house, Elena continued. Give half the money to Irina. She waited 30 years. She deserves something. That's generous. It's not generosity. It's acknowledging what you did, what she was to you. Elena picked up her tulips, straightened them against the stone. I don't want to see you for a while. I'll bring Anya to visit, but I'll wait in the car. Maybe someday that'll change. Maybe it won't. Victor opened his mouth, closed it, nodded again. Elena walked past him toward the cemetery gate. She didn't look back. At home that night, she sat at her kitchen table with a cup of cold tea and thought about her mother, about the life Marta had lived, believing she was loved, never knowing about the letters, the weekends, the woman at the library. Was it better, Elena wondered, to have been deceived but happy? Or would her mother have wanted to know the truth, even if it destroyed her? She would never have the answer. In the bedroom, Anya called out, a bad dream, a request for water. Elena went to her daughter, held her, whispered that everything was okay. But it wasn't okay. It would never be okay. Some truths, she understood now, didn't set you free. They just changed the shape of your prison.